kind. Okay, hello folks. My name is Robin, or Robin Laurén, which is unpronounceable if you're not from the Nordic countries. I work at a company called Reactor, or how they say it in Finnish, Reaktor, which is equally unpronounceable if you're not from the Nordic countries. Sounds a bit like a heavy metal band. I'm a Mac and Linux, and maybe network sysadmin. A few words about Reactor then. We're a global company. We're based in Finland. We got offices in 5-ish countries and project offices in a bunch of other countries because we like to be by the customer, sort of sitting in the lap of the customer. There are approximately 600 Reactorians who we lovingly call top specialists. Kind of a jest, but not really. Half of us are developers, more or less. We got designers, we got data scientists, we got coaches and graphics people and business dev people and support people. We try to use as much internal support as possible. So try not to have the phone lines to India just to get an IT problem fixed. It's also pretty common that one person has more than one sort of area of expertise. So you can have a coach who also is a developer or a graphics designer who is also into recruitment. And we're the kind of hipster type companies where people walk around without shoes on, with beards, making art in their freshly pressed cappuccinos, which may or may not make sense when it comes to my actual presentation here, which you will get actually 2 topics for the price of 1.5 because I might be running a bit long. I'll try to talk faster and still try to make sense. I'm going to talk to you about official security. What on earth is official security? Here's a secret. It's something I invented because there's no such thing as official security, but it's the kind of security that's related to anything official, like government functions or military or border patrol or coast guards or emergency service or the crown, if you have one, or the police or the secret police or all those spy orgs with 3-letter acronyms. So basically stuff paid with taxpayer money. And I need to go back because I had a point here to make. Okay, it doesn't matter. I'll give some spoiler alerts already at the beginning here. I'm going to be talking about these things from a Finnish perspective for the simple reason that I'm from Finland. I've studied these things, well, with regards to Finland. But still, other countries will have similar or slightly differing laws and functions compared to what we have. So it's going to be applicable to you as well. All this is big and complicated and complex and mind-boggling and hard, okay? And fun, in a weird sense. But there will be a lot of work if you want to truly dig into this stuff. So I'm going to just scrape the surface here. On the other hand, even if the stuff I'm talking about is technically from a government or official or central authority perspective, much of this stuff is actually applicable for commercial use in any kind of company or for personal use for that as well. And I'm going to sort of present an alternative. That's the other half of the talk. An alternative to this sort of top-down imperative security. I'm also going to talk in a perspective of a fairly small organization because it's better to start small. I mean, if you start big, you're probably going to do something very weird. And from a point of perspective that you, the admin, have a lot to say about security. Because, face it, you know a lot about security. So, you've all seen stuff like, or things like restricted or confidential or top secret in movies, in books, in presentations, like company presentations. What do these labels really mean? That depends on the context. So if you see a folder marked top secret in a movie, you know that very, very soon it's going to be leaked and spread and given to somebody else. I'm following this Netflix series called Colony, and leaking secrets is sort of a recurring theme. It's very bad secrets, or secret handling. Now, between friends, if you spill a secret, you might lose a friend. You might be unfriended, or gossiping might sort of be part of the social fabric you have, that you're supposed to tell secrets back and forth. In a commercial setting then, if you're in a company, your company can get fined. You can get fired, which is kind of sad. But in an official context, when all these secret things and security, they're actually governed by a law. And that means that, yeah, you're personally responsible for the dumb things you do. The company won't catch you. You can get fined, you can get jail time. In Finland, if you do truly dumb things, you can get 4 years of jail time. So any whistleblower, please take heed before you do truly dumb things. Make sure that you know what you're doing. There are different levels, called protection levels, of how much you need to take care of your secret stuff. So the basic level is called restricted, and it's defined like if it would be can't pronounce that, disadvantageous, is it? Thanks. If that secret is misused or revealed, then that's called restricted information, and you would need some kind of a clearance to see that. And the clearance is that you're allowed to see and handle this here information. There is no such thing as a universal clearance for all information. One step up, we have confidential information, and if information would be like personal security, like for example, a set of an address list, a name and address list of all the undercover narcotics police somewhere. That would be a confidential information, or protection level 3. First one is level 4, level 3. We have secret and top secret, which is level 2 and level 1. So if we have like a national security thing at risk, then that would be labeled secret and top secret. So it's actually very serious stuff. It's not just movie stuff. And all of this is described in a document that looks like so. It's called category. And even category sounds like a sort of an ancient spell. It's an abbreviation of the words kansallinen auditointikriteeristö, and that should be enough to get the spirits of the swamp and the forest to arise. But basically, it just means national audit criteria, which is a lot less fun. But still, it's an information security audit tool for Finnish authorities. It's just so big. It's very dense. It's comprehensive. There's a lot of stuff in here, and it's printed on 70 odd pages with quite small fonts and not very many pictures. If you either are part of the authorities or you need to work with the authorities, these are sort of the minimum stuff you need to pass. These are audit questions. They're not a checklist. As you know, security is not a checklist. So these are the questions that the auditors will ask you. That's okay. So how have you done this thing? And then you discuss it, and then the auditors will say yes, no, or maybe, or interesting. Even though it handles secrets, or how you should be handling secrets, it's a public document. it exists in Finnish and English. And as I said, yeah, there's parts of it, or subdivisions they're called, that handles management, like secure management. There's a bunch about physical security and then about information security. And I'm going to talk mostly about the InfoSec bit, just have a quick sort of one slide each of management and physical security. Other countries have similar sets of requirements. There's a Swedish one. These links are long. There's the German, or the Germanian one, the IT Grundschutz. Gotta love the Germans. You can find the stuff over there and then click English. The link to the English site is even longer than the one to the British one. Right, so national, but still useful. Let's have a deep dive into category. So prepare for about 10-15 minutes of do's and don'ts. And category actually sort of has the scent of documentation by committee. You can read that it's not written for humans. like if you read this stuff, there's this kind of, like when I read this the first couple of times, either it was I had this blank stare and I was scanning the lines like this. Actually, let's open the page. Scanning lines like this, and my head went into brain saver mode to sort of spare myself. And once I got through that, it was like, how is anybody going to be able to work in an environment like this? This is madness. And then I got brainwashed, and now it's like, yeah, actually, this does make a lot of sense. Let's see how it does for you, right? Category also says, use common sense. There's no need to start big, and that's why this one is also of the perspective, start small. Use common sense. Don't overdo stuff just for the sake of overdoing it, because security can be truly expensive. Right, so let's start by management. And by that, I just don't mean that you're wearing a tie, but actually how you're governing security, how you're taking care of stuff. So first of all, there need to be some kind of security principles. And you need to follow them. It's not enough just to have them written. They actually need to, you need to follow them. And somebody needs to be responsible. There needs to be somebody, sort of the security information chief officer, whatever. Again, as I said, if you're in a small organization, that's probably you, the admin anyway, because you know these things, but you're the one that the authorities are going to point the finger on. Your organization needs to have enough expertise to be actually secure. You can't just say, yeah, we have an ISO 9000 whatever, we're secure. No, you also need to do that. Need to be actually secure. These security principles, or whatever they're going to be called, are rules and regulations, though I think only a government or some official can issue regulations, whatever they call it, doesn't matter. They are for everyone at all times. So just because you have rank doesn't mean that you have immunity, and you're never in so much hurry that you're allowed to be insecure. You need to plan ahead. There needs to be a lot of thinking. You need to have processes, as they're called, for risk management, for continuity, like when my lottery bus finally comes in and takes away your IT guy, or the network guy, or the guy with the root passwords. You need to have some way to recover from that, because, hey, who knows? A risk management process is sort of when you identify all the things that can go wrong. And then you think of what would you do if they do go wrong? And in best case, what should you do so they don't go wrong? That's kind of nice. You need to have some sort of communications plan as well. So like if if the big fan starts throwing stuff around, then then you know that who is going to tell the customer, or who is going to tell your peers, your team, something like that. You need to have some sort of a way of handling, like if something goes bad, then what are your actions after that? Now, the word process per se, process is not a dangerous word. It's usually just how it's implemented. It's like many things, the word itself isn't bad. A process just basically means that, that this is how we're going to do it, and then you do it each time the same way. And if it turns out that the process sucks, or it's somehow it's not enough, it's bad, it doesn't correspond to how we work, then you should have a look at this process and redo it, have a better process. So don't do dumb things to yourself. And document. Document everything. Document fiercely. The authorities love documentation, even more so that it's more important to write it than to read it. If something isn't documented, for all practical purposes, it doesn't exist. Right, physical security. This means like the security for the place you're going to do the classified work. So you probably want to actually know, not probably. When I say should, it's actually another word for must, but I hate the word must. You need to build your working places so that it's sort of like an onion in multiple layers or levels or whatever, so that there are known doors for entry and exits, and some way to filter that only the authorized people get in. So it's not like in the movies. You can't come in through the ventilation ducts. There is no back door through the loading area or the basements, right? Or the elevator. You need to think of all those things. And when you get to a more classified, more secret, higher protection level place, like we're actually doing some classified work, there needs to be another kind of a doorstop. So again, you don't get in anywhere, and everywhere, and of course, you're not allowed. And again, if you have a storage facility for where you have all those secret papers, it needs to be yet inside that one, or your server room, for example. We'll be getting to the server room. Oh yes. All the structures of your building, they actually need to be approved in some way. Like there are doors, and if you look at certain doors that should be secured, they have a little it's called a shield, though it doesn't shield from anything, but it says that to which standard of something this door will protect against for physical stuff, and how much you can hear through it. And the same goes for locks. And the tragic thing actually, doors and locks, they are certified together. So you can't take a really secure lock and a really secure door and keep them together, because their combination is not considered secure enough. Yep, madness. Or like the door itself, it doesn't matter if your door is made of unobtainium and the lock is the one that needs the magic knock. If you can just lift it off the hinges, it's not going to be a secure door.
Or if you just go in through the window.
True, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if it's easier to go through the window or the wall, do that. All kinds of security systems, like alarms and all these things. Again, they have some sort of accreditation, if that's a word, some kind of approval from communications authorities or whatever. You can't just go to eBay or AliExpress and buy what's cheap, or build one yourself, because it's probably not going to be approved. You need, again, a process, an access management rights system, which at its simplest, it's just a paper with lines that says who has access where and why and since when and what for. You're probably going to be more technological than that, but at least you need to have a list of folks who are allowed to be around here. Also, Katakri also recommends these ID. Whoa, hello? I got more volume suddenly. Katakri recommends ID cards, but if you're a small operation, you probably know each other, which is actually even better. Keys, codes, like when you have a list of people who are allowed to just move it wherever you are, you also need a list of who has keys to where. There are codes like the code to the 4-number code to the door outside. So who has access to that one, and you need to change it every once in a while. You need to build your place so it's hard or impossible to hear or see from the outside what's happening. So if this were confidential stuff, I'd be broadcasting it through these windows, and that's bad. And if I'm shouting, they will hear me, and in this context, that would be bad. And you need to document it all, everything. That this door was installed by this here person at that time, and it complies to that standard. There's a lot of documentation. So that's why we get to the much more entertaining parts of information security. And because Katarki starts talking about information security from the network, so let's do that then. You need a firewall. That shouldn't surprise anyone. And with that one, you just don't separate the internet from the inside. No. You need to separate and subnet and subdivide and silo your network according to what functions you have. So you have one network for the users, and one for the servers, and one for the logging system, and one for the printers, and another one for another project. And if you got these displays, we call them radiators, then you might want to have another for that one. So you want to minimize. If something is compromised, then that attack doesn't automatically leak to the next network. And you need to have your firewall so that you default deny everything, and then as sort of rules or exceptions to that default deny, then you allow certain kind of traffic. So that means that, for example, from your user network, people are allowed to check DNS records from your own internal server, but not the outside. So that would probably stop a couple of botnets. Yeah, all these things. It's possible, allowed, and tricky to connect networks that are of different protection levels. So if you have only a protection level 4, a basic level network, then you can connect that one to the internet as long as you have proper filtering for stuff that goes through it, so that you have some way of stopping the bad stuff from happening. If you have a confidential, a level 3 network, you can't connect it to the internet. And that's going to be a bit tricky when we think about modern Macs that require internet to even install. It's possible, but not very easy to create a filtering solution that would only allow known traffic to go to a certain server. So we can say that, okay, Apple will have these checksums on this here IP address. We know that the content is going to look like this, and we can get that through to our whatever proxy thingy or whatever gateway it is. If it comes from anywhere Apple, plus those undocumented servers, you can't really have a level 3 network working. So this is a problem that we haven't really solved yet. And document everything. Document why you changed that firewall rule, who changed it, and yeah, stuff like that. But it gets worse. Wireless is seen as inherently insecure. It's not that WPA2 is bad, but just in case. Because, I mean, the authorities, they are slightly more paranoid than you and I. If you use anything wireless, it's seen as being in the public network. Like the security of anything wireless is seen as internet traffic. Why? Well, there's an operational security aspect to this or OPSEC, as the guys inside call it. So there's an OPSEC thingy to this. If you use wireless, you're always broadcasting, hello, we have a computer here. And if you're working in hush-hush things, you actually don't want to make a lot of noise yourself. So it's better not to broadcast, hello, we have 12 computers here now that are working. Oh, now there are none, they're on lunch. Oh, now they've gone home. Now, you need to be on a wired network to sniff a wired network. So it's better operational security just to forget everything wireless. And this goes for Bluetooth as well. No wireless keyboards, no wireless mice, sorry, no touchpads. That sucks as well. And it gets harder by the day to find wired gear that is actually good. I've learned to love the ThinkPad keyboard with a little red thingy, which most people hate with a passion. But it's wired and it's got this little pointy thing. Of course, you can always wallpaper your workspace with metallic mosquito nets and create a Faraday cage, but you're not going to do that. So just live with the fact that you're going to be without wireless. All right, system administration, the bread and butter of what we do, or systems management, can only be done by those individuals that have the authorization for that. So, sorry, no shadow IT. You can only manage stuff from your management network. So you need to really restrict who can do the bad things or the powerful things. You can only use per admin accounts as far as is technically possible. So every switch has an admin or a manager account. Most switches also have the possibility to create more accounts. You want one of those switches. Same thing with firewalls. So yeah, you have the admin account, and then everybody uses personal accounts because you need to know who did what. That also means that users don't get sudo rights to their computers. And for some, it's going to be tricky. Your management traffic needs to be not only restricted, but protected, encrypted. So all these wonderful protocols like Telnet and HTTP and VNC, forget about those. It's actually amazing that still, when you get a switch these days, or a firewall, that probably Telnet and HTTP is switched on by default. So it's insecure by design. You don't want that. You got secure shell. It's just as easy to use as Telnet, but it's secure, hence the name. You got HTTPS. It will require some work because, come on, who uses self-signed certificates? It's not secure. Well, it doesn't look secure, and you won't know if somebody changed anything anyway. You need to know what hardware is on your network so that you have a way of seeing, that doesn't look like something I put there. And then you can disconnect that. You need to have a way of knowing who changed what. The same thing like with user management and key management, all that stuff, physical key. So some kind of change management way. Doesn't matter what. Likewise, you need to know what users you have on your network and apply proper access control ways so that people just don't come and go wherever they want. It's called separation of duties as well, which is slightly at odds that I shouldn't be the IT sec officer and the admin at the same time if I can decide on the principles and then implement them. And what's known as principle of least privilege means that every account, every user account, can do only the stuff that it needs to do to get the stuff done. You don't share accounts. It's not only the management accounts, but also I don't borrow your password and log in as you. No, I get my own account for that. And then, of course, not all users are humans. So any service would run as a service account. And of course, you want to restrict that so that the service that runs mail, for example, is not allowed to log in to a machine. You can't use that one to do bad stuff. And you need to have some sort of a sensible password policy. So, so you have something written that your passwords, which need to be encrypted, of course, as we all know from the late, all these revelations that again, we have 1 million passwords somewhere. Don't be that company. You need to have some sort of a policy of password complexity and rotation frequency and what happens when you bang the wrong password, the right password but with caps lock in enough at times. Some of you might have done that. I've done that. Yeah. And also have a logging way to see who touched what, who did what. Which brings me to logging and monitoring. Log everything that makes sense. And log it centrally. I mean, it doesn't help you much if you have, again, let's say a mail server, and you have the mail log only on that server, because once it's gone or compromised or whatever, then it's gone, and you can't really see that. So you need to have a log server and have it on a separate log network again, and make sure that only the ones who should be getting to that server then can do that. Monitoring is not logging. Monitoring is sort of getting the telemetry of your servers, like how much memory and disk you have, and from the network stuff, how much traffic is moving through that, and you get a sort of a baseline for that. So you know you can see that on any given day, when work time starts, then you have more traffic like that, and then it's like this, and goes down again, and for lunch, and eventually goes up again like that, and people come back to work, and then it fades out. And then 2 or 3 in the night, something like that, you get software updates, and fine. That's a normal day. And if you see that for some reason you have sort of traffic like that in the middle of the night, you might want to look into that. It doesn't have to be a security incident. It just could be that some of your servers are acting up. Just having logs is not enough. You need to actually have a look at those logs, which can be tedious, or can bring you desperation, because you might think that all of your servers are running smoothly, and then have a look at your logs, and you realize they're not running that smoothly after all. Hardening, that's one of my favorites. Hardening basically is a way, a practice of making something more secure. Usually that means like having all sorts of safeguards, safe settings, firewalls, anti-malware, stuff like that. You should have a hardening process. Again, which is sort of a systematic way systematic and documented way of starting with like a Mac and ending up with a hardened Mac. So the stuff like managing it requires some sort of access, and the screen locks after some sensible amount of time, and if you're on a server or a firewall, whatever, you're being logged off after some inactivity. You need to have host-based firewalls on anything that has a firewall. Printers have firewalls. Engage that one. Remove any guest accounts. Of course, change the default passwords, had that one already. Make sure that the access rights on all directories are in order so that not everybody can write to the /var or whatever. Make sure that these safe files from the internet, that they're not automatically opened because they might not be safe. Have firmware passwords, BIOS passwords, use SE Linux, use disk encryption. Only allow a Mac or any kind of workstation, actually servers as well, to boot from the internal disk. Because, I mean, you could always woke up with a USB stick and boot it and slurp the contents of the machine and maybe be able to analyze something from there. Again, this malware protection thingy. Actually, yeah, patch and update. Yeah, you must patch and update. Next. Malware protection, again, needs to be done by some accredited, approved piece of software. And unfortunately, Gatekeeper is not recognized by the Finnish communications authorities. There are discussions going on how to get this on a sensible side. Actually, the core crypto isn't accepted either. I know it's got FIPS 120 accreditation, but the Finnish communications authorities, and actually I think that no European authorities have given or accredited the full chain of what starts with core crypto and how it's implemented and how it ends up as file vault. So technically it's not allowed, which is very silly. So sorry, the Mac malware isn't accredited, the Mac encryption isn't accredited. It's silly. Something needs to be done. Remove anything that isn't strictly necessary for work. That means when you get a new expensive 2 square meter 4K HDR television, you put it on the floor, you take out the screwdriver, you open up the 10,000 euro thingy, and you disconnect the Wi-Fi card. You take all those pretty Macs, you open them up, you can always use a Post-it note, that's almost fine enough, but not really. No, you can disconnect the camera. It's a bit unnerving the first time. You can disconnect the microphone because you don't want even the possibility for these to be misused. You know what else probably isn't strictly needed in your project? Your telephone. You don't want somebody to call your phone while somebody else is saying something which is confidential and stuff. So leave your phone outside. It's actually pretty good for your working efficiency to not have your phone with you at all times. But yeah, it's got a microphone, it's got a camera, it's got everything to sneak peek with. Yeah, so don't use it. And keep people educated why this needs to be done, because it's so easy to sort of do whatever you're used to. Yeah, I already said they're only approved security products. Managing secrets is another one of those really tricky things in life as an admin, because there's always going to be some passwords you need to share with your peers, like file vault recovery keys and the directory admin password and stuff like that. And of course, your own passwords. You need to take care of them. Or the private keys for certificates. Poke and test and audit and make sure that your machines actually are in function. And everything else. So treat your copies with the same amount of attention as your originals. A backup is not a backup until it exists in 3 places, 3 physical places, 3 different zip codes. And because you won't be able to actually look at those 2 other copies, you need to have better physical security and better encryption than what they are on the server. You need to think about all your gear's security over the whole lifespan of it. So that means, sorry, no recycling of gear. You need to buy new stuff. That's expensive. When you need to get rid of a paper that has classified information, it goes into the shredder. When you want to get rid of the information from that DVD or CD, it becomes security glitter and can't be read anymore. When you have an SSD drive, you might need to make security dust out of that. And that's kind of sad, especially with modern Macs that have the SSD drive integrated onto the motherboard. Yeah. You're also allowed to store and handle the stuff only in places that you are allowed. So it needs to be a secure place. You can't really go to the cafe nearby and work with confidential information because it's not a confidential place. So sorry, no remote work unless you're working at another equally secure place. If you need to travel, you walk with your laptop inconspicuously on yourself. If you're in a hotel, make sure that it's actually locked. A hotel safe, by definition, is not safe. It's just in the name. There are these things called tamper-proof bags. You can put your secrets into a bag. It won't protect anything, but you will know that it's been tampered with. It's a lot, isn't it? Do this, do that, must do this. And in the end, it's still the customer. These are the audit questions that you need to say, how have we done these? It's still the customer that decides that will they accept you or not. So sometimes it can be a bit hopeless. And you think that that's all. But there's stuff not in Katakri. So what's not there? Actual hard requirements are not in Katakri. It doesn't say how long the password needs to be, or how often you need to recycle it, or what the lockup period is. That's something you need to come up with yourself. That's your process. That's what you tell the auditors. So yeah, you're actually pretty much on your own. Katakri doesn't tell you how to actually do these things. It just says, yeah, you need to be safe and secure in this or that way. Or even why you should do these things. Sometimes it says, yeah, it needs to be this and that, but you have no idea really why. The Finnish communications authorities, they have a bunch of guidelines called Vahti. The IT Grundschutz, you gotta love the Germans. The IT Grundschutz, if printed out, would span 4,500 pages. You gotta love those Germans. It's like a box of printer paper. If you print on both sides of it, it's not very ecological. The department, let's see, because that's a complicated. The Defense Information Systems Agency in the US, they have their Security Technical Implementation Guides, or STIGs, which actually come as a bunch of mobile config files, which you can import it straight into your MDM and blast out to your computers. Of course, you should never import anything just like that into your MDM because. So, it's not easy, right? Security still isn't a checklist. You need to sit down with your colleagues and think. Actually, coming up with these things can be pretty fun. Think of 20 likely threats, and then decide which 10 of these are the most crucial and critical. Fix 5 of them and repeat, and you will be more safe. You will need a lot of people, truly. You will need twice probably the number of people than you'll have in any normal operation. And here's the kicker. Servers. Yes, 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 yes. The server room, the engine room is coming back because you can't really audit Salesforce or AWS or these things, or Gmail, Google. You don't really know where those mails are. So you can't say that that one server contains, or actually this here. No, sorry. You will need to create your own infrastructure and your own private cloud, which is on your premises. So welcome back to the engine room. Take back your black admin hoodie and roll up your sleeve because it's admin time. And you still need to be agile because, I mean, people are used to proper services. So now it's up to you to create that. So it's not cheap, and it requires a lot of money, a lot of people, a lot of time, and it will darken your soul at times. You will have the times of desperation. How am I going to do this? Start small. No need to buy a whole rack full of gear to solve stuff that would be solved with 3 Minimax. Don't skimp on the firewall. Get a UTM firewall that has all kinds of nice things like a firewall that recognizes, oh, so that computer is speaking with a botnet. Let's stop that. Or we get viruses from here and there. Not good. Let's not do that. Have proper switches that are command line configurable, which means you can get the configuration, save it in your version management, and if something goes bad, because something always goes bad, it's possible to feed it back to the switch, and hey, you're back running. Password management. Have a look at GoPass if you haven't before. About that. Assume there will be growth. So just because you start small doesn't mean that you should start with the smallest technical place they can fit in those 3 Minimax, because eventually there'll be more. You need software, right? In practice, you need a lot of it. And in practice, it's going to be on Linux because, oh, we all remember fondly the Mac server, but it's part of history these days. Learn to love the command line if you don't from before. I see that I put password management there again. Not to repeat myself, you need fairly quickly some kind of version management. So get a Git server up and running as soon as possible in your own infrastructure. And virtualize those 3 poor servers. If you know open source, get an open source virtualization. If not, get VMware, which either costs nothing, or you can get the Essentials package, which you can manage centrally 3 servers and any amount of virtual service for that. Have a look at a proper LDAP system. Could be open LDAP, could be free IPA, could be anything. Have a look at the Elastic Stack for logging. Become friends with Central. We already know about auto-package monkey, stuff like that. Have a way to be able to repeatably install your stuff the same way. So that means actually be friends with configuration management, like Puppet or Chef or at least shell scripts or Ansible, stuff like that. But in the end, security, especially this kind of public sector security, it's often seen as a top-down, mandated, required, forced upon, do this, do that, and here are the 4,500 pages that you need to know by heart. No wiggle room, no discussion, do this or face the consequences. And that's something that I would like to turn on its head, really, because I see that you, as this security guy, regardless of gender, the security person, the sysadmin person, you are the one to enable secure work. And make an environment which is bearable, that you can do your stuff. Your job is to encourage a culture and a behavior where people act in a secure way. So yeah, restrictions, they don't make life easier, but really your job is to make it so that it's doable. I think there are, well, at least 4 human sources of threats to your security. Ignorance, incompetence, malice, and mistakes. These may end up with the same kind of problems, but at least there are very different ways of handling them. So malice, I mean, most people are basically decent, right? And then there are some people who are basically decent, but from another perspective. So their agenda is to hack into your computer because they are from, like we would like to know what the enemy is doing. But we're nice guys. They're the enemies. Just turn that around and suddenly, yeah, you know. So all security documentation starts from the fact that, okay, there's somebody evil, and we want to stop them. And they have these purposeful, rational, clever, thought-out attacks. They're hackers. They have a good imagination to do these things. Social engineering is you practically don't see a only technical attack. Somebody will sit next to you in the cafe and listen to you and realize, or in the bar after 4 gin tonics, they are going to hear what you're doing and then maybe ask questions, and maybe you answer a little bit too much of what you're doing and what your environment is. Don't fall into that. Every once in a while, try wearing a black hat and educating yourself. How could our security be compromised? Ignorance is not a bliss. There are always going to be those who are too lazy or too busy or too important, too damn important to get stuff done now. I need that laptop now because I have a presentation in 2 minutes. Print these out, whatever, and we have a problem. And once somebody starts doing this, then sort of it becomes the new standard, and then you are allowed to do that, and suddenly you bring the USB stick from the street to your office computer, and 2 months later, these atom thingies that run the nuclear plant, they go a little bit faster, a little bit slower, and you have a disaster. Don't do that. Don't be that one. The key here is to educate people why security is important and why it goes for everybody. And that includes yourself. I mean, yeah, sure, you wrote those guidelines, so you know where to bend them or not. Take the backups. Take them on the schedule that you have. Look at those videotapes or what do you call security camera thingies, or the logs or whatever. And on the other hand, make it possible so that somebody can print out those documents. Have a public computer with a public printer. I mean, public for your people. Incompetence. Few people like to be called incompetent until you realize that incompetence isn't that bad, really. Incompetence basically means that you lack a skill. And once you put your finger on that, then incompetence can be your friend. And it can be cured by education. So I feel incompetent every week, nearly every day. And I decided I could do something about that. So hang on, did I shut this microphone off? No, thank you. So it's okay to be incompetent, and you can stop being incompetent. Some people don't know that they don't know. We have this Rumsfeld matrix of known. It actually makes sense, and people can be enlightened in wonderful ways. People tend to be human, and human people will eventually make act in a human way, right? We make mistakes. I make mistakes. It's like, oops, I just Googled the password because I pressed paste, not in the firewall password thingy, but in the address bar. I very quickly changed the firewall password after that. But these things happen. One of my favorite academic fields is called usable security. It's sort of the way of designing a system so that you're making secure choices. People will find ways around any kind of security if it's too draconian. Like if your screensaver goes on after 1 minute, they will find that command line tool that will inhibit the screensaver. And if you don't know that, ask me afterwards. Also, create a culture where it is allowed to be human, where you're allowed to make. I mean, you don't do malice, of course. That's bad. But you allow people to make honest mistakes, where you know what to do, and you can talk about making mistakes, and then you learn from that. Like at some stage, I talked with a security person from another way less flexible organization than ours about somebody, could have been that they forgot their from our folks, forgot their laptop or key or something like that. And the eyes showed up. So how was he punished? No. You don't punish people. You make sure that there's a way to fix the problem, and you learn from that. If you're going to punish people who make mistakes, nobody is ever going to tell you what mistakes they made, and your systems or anything is never going to be anything more secure. So make sensible security. Talk about it, and have a culture where everybody understands that security is important, not scary. It's a good thing. It's sort of the building blocks of that we can do our work. Be honest to yourself, and be honest to your customer as well. And your customer will probably appreciate more from that. So don't hide your mistakes. Learn from them and make yourself a more resilient organization. And I think by that, that's all. That's where you can find me on the internet, on the MacAdmin Slack. That's an email address and a web address and all that stuff. Yeah, and I'm done. Thanks. I'm fairly sure.